Booze and boards, boards and booze. Bad guys at large, it's bad news. No beer this time, so we won't lose. We found their lair, they'll pay their dues. The town is saved, so now we booze. Booze and boards, boards and booze. With Mickey and Jeb.
Alright, people. We got a surprise for you.
Beep. Beep.
Jeb's backing up.
Beep. Hey.
Oh!
No, what is that reminiscent of, Mickey?
The beeping sound that we've had numerous complaints for on our videos.
And what did we think was the cause of that?
You backing up?
Beep.
We thought it was a fire alarm somewhere.
Oh, this fire alarm?
Oh! There it is. We have a
Smoke detector.
Smoke detector.
Yeah.
It's still a fire alarm though, kind of, right? It alerts you. It alarms you.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
I don't know.
Anyways, so quick story about this before we get into today's game. So we hunted it down through the drop ceilings down here, and we found it. And it's a hardwired one, okay? So hardwired ones, if you don't know, there's a little plug for the wire so that it always has power, but they also have a backup battery too. So we were all excited when we found it. Yanked this wire out. We're like, ooh, done. And we start walking around. Beep. What?
And I was walking forward.
Okay, Jeff was walking forward and still beep. And then we're like, no. So we ripped the 9-volt out of there. Of course, I'm thinking there's no way that 9-volt's any good with as long as it's been in since just like forever in this house, and it's been buried in the ceiling. No battery can't possibly be good. So rip the 9-volt out. Yes! Beep! Oh my gosh. So we're like, there's another one down here, because it's it's a decent sized basement, right? And even though code's 1, maybe they were like, well, there's a room here, and maybe you need to put one in another room. I don't know. So we start standing in the... Listen. Jeb's like, I think it's that, Mickey. I'm like, no. So dummy me goes, okay, fine. Boom! Right in my ear. Beep! Oh my gosh. So I'm like, it's possessed.
Yeah, it's like there should be no power to this thing.
It should be totally dead. So, for the last thing I do is I'm like, so you know, if you know anything about smoke detectors, they have the test/reset button on them or whatever. So I'm like, hold it in, and it goes beep. That was
the most hilarious thing.
You guys are probably thinking we're a bunch of idiots, and that's not funny. It was funny.
It sounded like he'd killed it.
I know. And then, for real, we got victory.
Yeah. And we haven't heard a beep since.
Woo,
except when I backed up.
Out of here. Alright,
so
today's
you were
game,
talking about that story. Was there an end on the horizon?
Oh, Jeff, good lead-in. No, it wasn't.
Hey.
Alright.
We got horizons.
We do have horizons. Have we... This is a game by Daily Magic Games, which I have a bunch of. But
we did the one where you're thieves and you go down the castle.
That's your game.
7-minute heist, or I think that was, or 10-minute heist. I can't remember.
Right. Okay. So
but yes, they actually did that game.
Right. I know, which is one Jeb really likes it. I really like that game too, but Jeb owns it, and I didn't know they did it. But I have a bunch of their games, and for whatever reason, we never get to them. So this was. Well, they have another Kickstarter up there now. This is a recent Kickstarter that I backed. It's called Horizons, and it is supposed to have the feel of a 4x4 game that plays in basically under an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It also plays up to 5 and ages 14. I might actually agree with that one on this one.
I know with the ability sides of the cards,
Yep.
I would say definitely.
And 60 to 75 minutes, which is very fair. The game, as soon as you understand it, plays relatively quick. There's not a whole, like, you only have, you have a decent amount of options, but each turn, you're only...
2 actions.
You got 2 actions. Sometimes there's only a couple things you're going to be able to do, and most of the times there's only a couple things you're going to want to do. So you kind of know before your turn what's going to happen. So the premise of this game is you're each an alien race, and you're trying to colonize star systems, basically. And yeah, I don't... You got anything else to elaborate on what the game is about?
You build stuff on planets.
Okay, thanks, Jeb.
No,
This guy.
You start with stars equal to the number of players, and then you just kind of like build around them. And as you're building around them, you try to colonize them, and that's what kind of leads towards the end game and your victory points and all that stuff.
Right. Oh, so. Yes, it is a get the most victory points type of game. There are besides the building and exploring that Jeb mentioned, you are also able to help allies to help you out.
Yes, there are allies
during your conquest or mission or whatever.
You've got mission cards and
so that's pretty much an overview of it. Again, like I said, Daily Magic. Most of their. I mean, I like 10 Minutes Heist. I like the other games I have that we haven't gotten to yet, and so I'm glad that we're able to showcase one of their games now.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. I thought you were going to say something.
So one thing to mention, I figure it's good to mention it now. They have it where the base, like the beginning way to play it, everybody's the exact same.
Right.
Like you all have the same actions and costs for building and stuff. But on the flip side of every card, there's a specific alien race who has an ability, I guess kind of an ability. It's all their actions are a little bit tweaked compared to everybody else, and their costs are a little bit different.
I wouldn't even say a little bit. I thought they were hugely different.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, it's a whole different game on the flip side of the cards.
Right. So just a heads up, you can play it where everybody's kind of on the same playing field to begin with, or you can play it where everybody's like, whoa, what? Who are you?
Yeah, and if you've watched this far in the intro, we are going to be different. We are going to teach you guys. Yes. We're going to show you the mechanics as normal, but we're going to play the game everybody different. We're going to play the flip side so that you get to see at least 3 of the races in there.
Our thinking was you can probably see gameplay of the basic thing anywhere.
So we're trying to switch it up so you guys can see a little bit different, and then we'll give you. We have played it both ways, so we'll give you our opinions on that during the review. But I guess unless Jeb has anything else to say, we will run right into components, and then we'll flow into setup and gameplay.
All right, we are going to go over the components of Horizons for you. The first thing to talk about is the player board, and as you can see, it's the only board on the table.
Providing a ton of information for you, so if the game looks overwhelming, they did a real good job of having this stuff intuitive, I guess, best word for it, maybe.
And one of the big things is if you flip that bad boy over.
Okay, so notice this little star. Star is kind of the opposite of every other game. Star means basic in this game. If you flip the board over, then all of a sudden the characters have different abilities and
like for this stuff. One, if you note that these 3 planets are gone, but on the basic one you get all 6 planets. Right. So just know that one side is for basic, one side is for advanced. Next up are the habitat markers, and those are in the same color as your player board.
Yep, and they're these little pieces of cardboard. Those are habitat markers.
How many are there?
6.
And they correspond to?
6 planets.
There you go. All right, next up are the tiles. So there are 2 types of tiles. There's the star tiles,
And there are
Planet.
1, 2,
Or world
3,
tiles.
4, 5 of these.
Yep, and if you flip them over,
They look the same.
Yep.
And you know why? Because this game plays up to
5.
Good job, Jeb.
All right, and then the next up are the world tiles, and these
Lots
are
of
a little
different worlds.
bit different because when you flip them over, they're
They
not
have-
the same.
And look, blue, green, blue, red,
green.
not green. Yeah. You will notice that they match
Yep.
the planets across the top of the player boards.
All right, we are going to look at some cards now. So we'll start with the League Ally, which everybody gets one of these to start.
All exactly the same.
And there's a red side and a green side of them.
I'm showing the wrong side first.
Yep, that's fine. You start them with the green side because green is healthy. Red means they're somewhat used, and once you use them at red, they go away. Next up are the Alien Ally cards, and there are 5 different groups of these.
Right, and you group them by, well, a couple ways you can group them. They're going to be grouped by this symbol in the bottom left. Also, their alien race name is going to be the same on all of them. So,
Yeah.
for example, I'm gonna butcher the names, but you'll notice that has the blue symbol, and those are Olo, and this is Dalgaran.
And those are the red symbol.
Yeah, that's the red symbol, and that's the blue
Yep.
symbol. So, and then the rest of them are in here too, just
And they all correspond
to
to
those, right?
All right. Also on the backs of those, they're red, like
Right.
the other ally we
Yep.
showed you.
So they're a 2-use card.
Yep. There are player aid cards.
Sorry, I was having a spot of beer there, people. Peanut butter beer that Jeb bought me. So player aid tells you.
What the icons are.
Yep.
And then anything on the back. Oh
Yep.
yeah, turn order.
Scoring.
Oh, scoring, not turn order.
Yep.
All right.
Well, turn order. You take 2 actions.
Maybe I need to see that every
Okay.
time. Right there, actually. Take 2 action. All right.
He's a genius.
So the next type of card are mission cards.
Right? Mission cards pretty simple because they have this back and they are also sideways.
Yes. And they list how many victory points there were at the condition you need to meet.
Yep.
And then there's also in the bottom right a number for how many, if there's that many players or more, you use that card. Because if it says 3+, then if it's 3, 4, or 5 players, then you include that card.
Yes. And I just mixed them all up like a dummy.
Yep. But I let you.
Just let me do it.
All right, next up we'll talk about resource tokens. So there are 3 different resources. The first one is metal, and they are the grayish squares. And then there are the energy tokens, which are the yellowish circles. And then there are knowledge tokens, which are the purple some kind of shape.
Kind of like a triangle without points.
And then now there are the building tokens. And these are specific to the color player board that you have. So since Mickey's green right now,
Right.
he's got 3 different types of buildings that he can build. The first one is a metal collector. And they're kind of like a starburst kind of pointy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is the energy collector, which is the...
Cylinder type of thing.
Yep. And then lastly is the colony, which is the biggest of all of them. And it's kind of like a little house.
Or a doorway.
Either one.
An arch.
And then the final component is the cloth bag. Oh, actually, there's one more that I missed. But the cloth bag, that's where you put all the planet
Yeah,
tiles.
because you get to randomly get these each game, which keeps it cool.
And then I guess the final thing are the victory point tokens, which you can use when you're counting up victory points at the
Yeah,
end.
that's actually when most of the time these get used, is just so when you're scoring, you can just chuck them out.
Yeah.
It makes it a little bit easier than trying to keep track of stuff in your head.
And that's everything for components. So we will get into setup. The first thing is that players are going to take a board and all of the tokens and items that are associated to that color. So Mickey has the green one.
Green.
Yep, so he's got all of his buildings that are green and his habitat markers that are green. They're also going to get a starting ally, so every player gets the same starting ally, and he's going to be on the green side.
Just in case you're wondering, the starting ally is Exploration League Terran, and everybody gets that card.
They're also going to get a player aid.
I'll put it on the symbol side.
All right. They get 1 knowledge, 2 energy, and 2 metal. All right, so Mickey has all of that collected, so he's going to start placing his buildings on his player board. And they have the corresponding spaces. And they actually list what they are, so it says colonies and metal collectors and energy collectors. And
But like when you first play the game, you might not remember what the shapes are, so it's nice to have a picture of the shape so that you know where they go.
And then also the adapt tokens, they are going to go above the planets.
Notice that I am placing them off the board.
Yes.
And that is for a reason, because you do not have access to those planets yet until you adapt that planet.
And I guess they might be wondering, what does it look like after you adapt, if you wanted to show them real quick.
Ooh, can I, Jeb?
Yep. All you do is move it down so it's flush to the edge.
And look, they even made it so it matches the the little lines and stuff going across.
Yeah. So that's what it would look like once you adapt it. But that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Next up, you're going to shuffle the mission cards and deal 2 to each player. So this is where, when you collect the mission cards, it's based on player count.
Right, and since I just messed these up and shuffled them all, but everybody knows how to deal 2 cards, right? I deal 2 to Jeb.
Yep. All right. Next up, you are going to sort the aliens into 5 stacks and shuffle them.
Which if you watch the components, these are going to get shuffled and then just randomly put out into like a market somewhere on your play area.
Not in front of the players.
Right,
because in the middle is going to be all the planets and stuff.
So this is a market off to the side, in the center, however... No, not in the center, really.
The center is where you build the planets and everything.
So just somewhere where they can be read and accessed by everybody.
And then, since these don't have, like, all the same backs, when you shuffle them, just don't look at them or whatever, and then place them down. Alright, next up is to place star tiles equal to the number of players on the table. So this is kind of how, when you sit like the players in a circle, in the very center you're going to place the planets.
And we're going to be playing with 3 people, so I think we just put them in kind of a straight... You just need enough to be able to build around it.
Right.
And easy enough to adjust when you start too, so you'll be able to see if you need to like slide over a little bit or whatever, but these will be kind of in the middle.
Yep. And then you are going to place all the world tiles into the cloth bag.
These are not all of them, this is just an example. It really puffs out the bag if you put them all in. But you put them in, try to mix them up best you can.
Alright, you are going to determine the first player, and the first player is going to draw a random world from that bag and place it on either side of their choosing, anywhere adjacent to one of the stars.
So I pretend I have a green and a blue. If you want a little bit of strategy, looking at my board, the green one is going to cost me a little bit more to just get something on the board than the blue. So I would probably go with, not necessarily, but I might go with blue.
Right.
So I'm going to put a blue down.
All right.
And I'm going to make it...
Yeah, match. I was going to say...
You don't have to make it match, but you can.
Right. Alright, and then it says to move the adapt token for that world onto your board. So Mickey gets to adapt to that one. And then you're going to pass the bag to the left, and the next player is going to draw and place one. So I'll do that. And after I place, I get to choose to adapt to any of the worlds that are out there. So it doesn't have to be the one. So I got purple and I got white. So I'll pick white and I'll put it over here.
Okay.
And I'll choose to adapt to blue just because that's another option.
So on his board, he would have done the same thing because he wanted to adapt to the same color, and that's just how the setup works. Notice that he put it over here. It's important to remember, he could have put it right there if he wanted to. You do not have to stick to a certain star.
Is this legal, Mickey?
No, Jeb, why would you even think that?
I don't know, because space is infinite.
No, they do have to...
Yes, there is a rule that says you can only place them adjacent to a star.
To a star, right.
Yep.
So, he could do this, though.
Yep.
I don't know why, but because it looks silly. And Jeb's silly.
I am.
I don't know. But anyways, that's a kind of a different concept than some other games. It's like because you don't own any of this territory.
Nobody owns anything.
Just so you know, these aren't going to ever connect. When we get into the whole thing, you'll kind of understand why, but just in terms of setup, it's just, you're kind of trying to figure out what's going to help you with your own board.
All right, so I drew a tile, placed it. The players following me are going to do the exact same thing until it gets back to Mickey. And once it gets back to him, then we're ready to start the game.
So the third player would have picked one, put it here, and then they would have had an option of whatever color was here. Excellent, we got all different colors. So let's say they chose green. Now they could adapt green, blue, or white.
Right.
So that's kind of the advantage to not going first, is that you have way more options on what you're going to adapt. Case adapt doesn't make sense yet. You probably figured it out, but that means I have access to do these actions now.
All right, so that's it for setup. So we will get into gameplay. So the game is going to consist of players taking turns until the in-game condition is met. So that pretty much means if Mickey's first player, he would take his turn. Once he's done, it would go to the next player, and so on until the in-game condition is met. So on your turn, it's extremely simple. All you do is take 2 actions, and you can mix and match which actions you take. So on the player board, there are the actions. Yep, and it tells you what they do. So let's go over those real quick. The first one is explore. And that one is you draw a world from the bag and you place it adjacent to any star.
You've got a world. I have the volcanic red world and a blue one again. So now a lot of the mission cards in the game have something to do with types of worlds and things like that. So they might drive what I'm going to pick. For right now, I'm just making stuff up, but I just wanted to let you guys know because we're really not going to get into the missions because how many missions are there?
A lot.
Yeah, exactly. So you can read a mission card and you know what you have to do. So I just wanted to point out that, yeah, the planets can actually make a difference.
Yeah, like there's one that says have all different colors.
Right. So if I had that mission, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to put a red one down and I'm going to place it here and hopefully somebody doesn't mess it up.
Yep. After you place it, you will gain 1 knowledge token. If there is no room to place a planet, you can still take this action, but all you do is get the knowledge token.
Just FYI, knowledge tokens are basically victory points.
Yep.
There are a few cards that there's some exchange mechanisms that you can use with it, or it'll let you do something, but in general, they're victory points.
Yep. All right, the next action you can take is to adapt. And to adapt it, you move the adapt token of one of the worlds that are showing in the whole board, and you move it down. So
I want green.
All right. And once you do that, you get to gain any ally that you want. So out of the 5 piles, you get to pick one of the top ones. It's not technically any. You don't get to search through the decks. You have to take the top one.
You don't have to take the top one. You can choose to put the top one underneath, and then you must take the other one.
Okay.
So you can blindly take one, but you're
Force
risking. These have some amazing abilities. So when you start the game, read them. They maybe the first couple turns they won't make too much sense, but once you get a gist of it, you guys will be scoping out which allies are going to benefit you the most. So, like Jeb said, I get a planet for myself into play, and then I look over here and I'm just gonna grab one. I'm not even reading it, and I would put it down here with my other guy. There are a limit to the number of allies you can have.
The next action is build. So what you're going to do is build a single structure on any of the places that you can afford to pay for it.
That are adapted.
Yes, that are adapted.
Right. So right now, the only places that I can build something are on a green planet and a blue planet. The blue planet right now, it allows me to build a power factory or whatever you want to call it. Energy, power, come on.
It says energy in the thing.
Since when do you correct me on symbols? Mister, it's a head, it's a foot. No, it's not agility, Mickey. It's a head, it's a foot. It's not intellect. It's not agility. It's not strength. It's a power arm. It's like a power ranger, Jeb. So,
once you picked an adapted planet, you can pay the cost of whichever building that's listed underneath that planet, and then build that structure on that planet.
Right, so if I pick blue, I have to pay a power and a metal to build a power factory.
Sure.
Energy factory. Sorry, Jeb, energy. I have to pay an energy and a metal to build a energy factory. Or I could pay 2 energy and 5 metal to build a colony.
Right.
Guess who can't afford a colony right now?
That guy.
Alright, so I go put these back into the supply.
And then he gets to take the leftmost one. I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, it does, because that helps you count when you're...
Oh, with the resources.
It's actually very smart. Technically, like Jeb said, it doesn't matter, but when you're trying to figure out how many things you have on the board, you can just glance at your board and you'll know.
Yeah.
So then I place it on one of the little spots on the planet.
If you can't see, there's 3 spots on each planet, and there's no spots on the suns.
And that's max. 3 things can be built.
And then if you build on a world that already has another player's structure on it, both get a resource of their choice. Alright, the next action you can take is Harvest. And for Harvest, you are going to gain 1 resource per collector you have on all the worlds. And as Mickey said earlier, the shortcut is just to look at the number that's on the collectors on your player board.
So if I harvest, I get 1 power right now.
And that means he takes 1 power
from the supply,
puts it on his board.
They don't have to be on the board. That's just visually easy for you guys.
Alright, and then the last action you can take is Conspire. And for this one, you can either draw 2 mission cards from the mission deck, or you can draw 1 mission card and take 1 ally.
Right. So there would be a deck of mission cards out there.
Yep.
And if that didn't make sense, you get to draw 2 of these.
Yep.
Or you...
1 mission and 1 alien ally.
1.
Yep. Alright. Now we should talk about alien allies and how they work with actions. When you have allies in front of you, if you take an action that matches the action on an ally, right before you do the action or right after you finish it, you can use their ability and flip them face down. Yep. Or if they're already on the red side, get rid of them.
Yep. And it absolutely makes a difference before and after.
Yep.
Some situations, it is super beneficial to do it before, and some situations, it's super beneficial to do it after. In some situations, it really doesn't matter. You just want to do it.
Right. So this guy has the green symbol, which is Harvest, and his ability is pay X metal tokens to gain X energy tokens. So for this one, if I chose the Harvest action, I could either do that first and then harvest, or I could harvest and then do that.
Now this one instantly makes me think, just as an example, it's probably going to be an end of the turn one.
Yeah,
because I would have that right. Yeah, like if I had a ton of metal stuff
Yep.
out, and I had very little power stuff out, I could take the harvest action, harvest my metal, and then trade it in for power.
Yep. So if you did like Mickey said, you would flip him over, and now he's on the red side.
Traditionally, the red side is the exact same action. I'm not 100% sure if it is.
It is.
Okay. It is the same action all the time. It's just you only get to do it one more time before the card gets discarded.
One thing to note about the allies, you can activate only one ally per action. So if I had 3 allies that had the harvest symbol, if I chose harvest, I would have to pick one of them to activate.
Now, in your next action, you
I could harvest, use him, harvest, and then use somebody else.
Right.
And in this case, if I harvested again and used him, after his effect goes, he's on the red side, so he's going to get discarded, and discarded is just on the bottom of the deck that he came from.
Yep.
So put them back. I don't think they can see that.
And notice that Jeb did give an example of doing the same action twice, and there is nothing in the rules that prevents you from doing the same action twice.
Yep, because it says mix and match right there.
Jeb, you astound me some days.
I thank you.
Don't let it go to your head, buddy.
Okay. All right. Another thing to talk about are the mission cards. They award victory points at the end of the game. It is not when you complete them. You have to wait until the end of the game for them to actually give you the victory points.
It's kind of important, too, because that's the biggest secret element of the game.
Right.
So if you're trying to complete stuff, your opponent doesn't really know what you're trying to complete. Do you want me to read a couple, Jeb, or what do you want to see?
Do just a couple of them.
All right, so like this is 1 victory point. Complete 4 other mission cards.
Huh.
That's not easy for only 1 victory point.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
Kinda,
but I mean, you don't really have to do any active work on the board for it.
This one is gain minority control in all systems, which we haven't talked about yet. This is build a colony, a power station, and a metal station on 1 planet. So that means you're going to have to put 1 of each in 1 single planet. And et cetera, et cetera. There are all kinds of different things, and they're worth all kinds of different victory points based on how difficult the designers of the game felt that those were.
And the very last thing on your turn after you take your 2 actions is you are going to discard down to 5 allies and 5 missions. So during your turn, you might acquire 6, 7 allies, but at the end of your turn, you're going to have to discard down to 5.
On your turn, you're going to gain 6 or 7?
Well, if you have 5 to start and you gain 2.
Oh, I see what you mean. And then, okay.
Yeah.
I thought, the way you said that, I was like, I'm going to gain 5 allies in 1 turn. I'm like, wow.
No, that's...
You're impressive, because I don't know how you did that.
I know. And then that is everything for your turn. So once you finish your turn, moves to the next player. They do all that stuff as well. And then it just keeps going until the ending condition for the game, which is if a player immediately places their 5th colony on in the galaxy on whatever planets, when all 5 colonies have been built for 1 player, the game immediately ends. There is no extra round or anything like that.
Which is kind of strange, but it kind of works well in this game in terms of you have to pay attention to when people are getting close.
Yeah.
You know, if and it's not cheap to build colonies.
Right.
So it's not necessarily, if you're thinking to yourself that's a bad mechanic, not being able to finish the round, with the way that you should be paying attention to other people and the way that the cost is on some of these, I don't think it's that bad from the couple times that we got to play.
I don't think any of us had ever built 2 colonies on 1 turn. Like, that's 14 resources. You got to do that. And I don't think we ever got that high with it.
No, because normally you've got to harvest at least once, so that's going to suck up a turn.
So, like, once they get down to, like...
There's a max on your number of resources you can have. I believe it's 10 each, so that helps mitigate things too.
All right, so let's talk about scoring. So the way scoring works is the first thing, everybody is going to reveal their mission cards, and the completed ones are going to score victory points.
That's where these really actually come in handy, because it's beneficial to do how Jeb is going to read all these to you.
Yeah.
So everybody does their mission cards.
And it helps to actually have everyone go through and read them and double check it.
Because in the game you're going to see, I thought I got a couple that I didn't, and it was pointed out by Jeb and Gary that I didn't get them because my brain doesn't work well all the time. It works better than Jeb's, but it does. Sometimes it has malfunction.
That's a fact.
But anyways, again, these are actually kind of useful, even though they're not too much during the game.
All right, so once everybody counts up their victory points from missions, the next thing you're going to do is gain 1 victory point per knowledge token. So
Which are the purples.
Yep, you can either keep those in front of you or divvy out the
If you have a ton, it might be
Yeah.
it might be worthwhile just so you can visually just be like, that's a 6.
And then the last thing, which is probably all what everybody's thinking, like, well, what's the point of building stuff on these planets and stuff? The last thing is to determine who has the most control in each system. When you're doing this, colonies are worth 2 points and collectors are worth 1. And that's not victory points, it's just points to figure out who has the most control.
So I'm going to build an entire system, right? This is a planet. This is a system. Doesn't necessarily have to be full, but a system is a cluster. A planet is a single tile. That is not a planet. That is a star. Okay, now that we've cleared those definitions, we can make up a couple things for you.
So, for example, we have set up a system that has a bunch of players' buildings on it, and we are going to try to determine who has the most control of the system. So, like I said, colonies are worth 2, and collectors are worth 1. So let's start with white.
White has 2, 4, 5.
All right, and then brown.
1, 2.
All right, and then green.
2, 4, 5, 6.
All right, so green has the most, yellow or white has the second most, and brown is last. And then what happens is the player with the most control of the system gets 6 victory points. The second most gets 3 victory points. And if there's a tie, then you would look at the book. Because there you can tie for people with the most, or you can have somebody who's the most, but 2 people tie for the second most. And the book actually has a breakdown of the points.
Yeah, it breaks it down on how it's supposed to go. So in this system, green wins. If we look at this system where nobody wanted to go, which that probably wouldn't happen because the game kind of forces you to build stuff. I won't say that everything will be completely full, but this is probably not going to happen. But in this case, 1, 2 to 1, brown would take the victory, white would take the second place, the third player would get nothing because they didn't put anything in the system.
Right, and then over there is just 2 green
greens.
buildings, so green would get the 6 points.
Right.
And then once you're done, you total up all your victory points, and if there are any ties, they're broken by the most resources, then the most victory points for missions, and then it's a shared victory if you're that tied of a game.
That is probably not going to happen, but I feel like most games put stuff in just in case.
Yep.
Which is shared victories. It's a cop-out.
That's true.
Nobody wants to share with Jeb.
Wow. That's true, though. All right, and that is everything for the game.
Okay, so hopefully you guys understand that, because honestly, even though I think the game can look a little complex, I mean, it's got a lot of pieces, it looks like it's got a complicated board, the game is not complex. You take 2 of these actions, when these are activated, you can do the stuff on it, the game ends, when all 5 of those are out. That's it. Got to pay attention to ability stuff, but
Allies
but at its core, that is the entire game. So, hopefully, we're going to be a little bit different. Other videos, I'm guessing, we haven't watched everybody's video, have probably played a standard game with this. We are going to play a 3-player game, and we are going to flip these suckers over, and we are all going to play with special abilities. At the beginning of the game, we will read you what our abilities are, and we will explain to you what changes happened with our actions, because that's basically what they did. They basically took the cost of the planets, they messed it up. In this particular situation, they even took away planets, and then they adjusted at least one of these.
Yeah,
so the harvest action,
no,
that
the
is
adapt.
the adapt action on this actually says welcome.
Yep, and
So-
it does something different.
Right, so you have to read what the species does well for you, and then you have to adapt your game to that character, and it really makes for some interesting scenarios, and you'll see that when we play, which I thought was a really it was a really good thing to do. It keeps the game fresh. So that's it, and hopefully you guys come back and you'll get a better feel for the game if you watch a few turns, and I think you'll get a appreciation for the asymmetrical aspect if you want to play that game that way. And I don't think you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that it heightens the difficulty. It heightens the strategy, but I don't think it heightens the difficulty of the game in terms of sheer mechanics.
Nope. All you got to do is make sure you read all your actions, because something might have changed.
Yep, exactly. All right, so we will be back with a 3-player game of Horizons in just a minute. It'll be myself, Jeb, and Gary.